Hey everyone, this is Acterys here, Managing Director of Architecture and Platforms here at FP Automation. Welcome back to our series on financial planning and analysis within Fabric powered by Acterys. In this video, we'll be continuing on the P&L journey by focusing on capital expenditure planning or CapEx planning. Before getting into the details and contents of this video, I wanted to quickly recap on what we covered during our last video. In our last video, we talked all about travel and expense planning, and the idea that teams have the ability to plan both at a detailed level as well as a percentage of revenue level in order to justify the various different travel and expenses, which is an operating expense planning account that allow them to show exactly where they're spending travel as well as any sort of meals and expenditures that may potentially play a key influence on key decision-making meetings or potential revenue opportunities where the company, depending on the business, is able to get potential lead generation or revenue deals closed during things such as conferences, for example. In this video now, we're going to be talking about CapEx planning, where companies have the ability to influence what sort of assets that they are purchasing for their organization, depending on what their organization is, and then how that is affecting the company both from a non-cash expense standpoint on depreciation, as well as how this is affecting their balance sheet. This ultimately is going to lead into the cash inflows and outflows of the business, allowing the business to be able to see if they have enough cash to be able to make these investments and what these investments will exactly do for the business. So as an example, you might be a consumer product goods company, and we've done this for many different clients where they need to essentially invest in production facilities to be able to produce goods. There could be other situations where other companies that we worked with, such as software companies, are investing in data centers, for example, for cloud consumption. All depending on your business will depend on what sort of capital expenditure you're working on, but ultimately you have the ability to have real-time inputs in place, allowing you to see real-time financial impacts on both your P&L as well as your balance sheet and your cash flow statement based on how your financials are aligned within your system. So in our case right here, we can actually see a table edit visual showcasing our capital expenditure planning. This is going to allow us to be able to enter in the useful life of an asset, our purchase price for that asset, the organization it's affecting, as well as any sort of lead times that need to be put in place, such as different purchases that are happening for that asset itself. We can also see an impact analysis right here showcasing each of our assets, the accounts that they are hitting from a balance sheet and P&L standpoint, affecting both our net fixed assets on the balance sheet as well as our depreciation, which ultimately will lead to a non-cash expense item, which ultimately affects profit to show a lower profit for the organization from a tax standpoint. So here what I have the ability to do is I can actually come in here and I can create a brand new asset. Let's call it asset 0 just so that we can see it at the top of our screen here. We can see that that asset is also automatically rendered against a particular scenario we're working on, and we can give that asset a useful life. Let's go ahead and put 10 right here. We're also going to put the purchase price at $150,000, and for the purchase date, we have the ability to be able to influence when exactly this asset's going to be purchased. So you can see right here, I'm going to put this toward April 1st, 2024. I can also indicate the entity or use a drop-down selection, and then we can also indicate the lead time months. For now, I'm going to keep this blank so that you can see this eventually show up from an impact perspective on the particular table that we're seeing below here. When I hit save, this ultimately gives us the ability to be able to not only save this value within our system, but also see it immediately impacted on our financials. So we can immediately see that our asset is purchased on April 2024, affecting our balance sheet. We can see the depreciation both affecting the balance sheet side as well as the P&L side, and we can see how long that is straight lined for. In this case, we can see that this particular asset is going to go longer than 1 year. So if we actually build in 2025, we can actually see this particular asset cutting off within January of 2025 based on the number of useful life months right here. In addition to this, what we also get the ability to do is we can also see the depreciation as that's changing over time too. So how much is actually being influenced from a depreciation standpoint versus the net fixed asset standpoint. So we can see our total fixed assets and how that is changing over time to be fully depreciation essentially as we move throughout the months here. In addition to this, we also have the ability to be able to do smart Excel planning where, like you saw before from the travel and expenses video, We also have the ability to be able to change values within an Excel input mechanism. So if we want to have teams copy and paste their assets directly within here, within the screen here, they can easily save and refresh them directly within the model itself here. Switching back to this model where we're on the table edit visual, we can also put any sort of lead time months that we want to have in place. So if I navigate to my fixed asset that I just had inputted, asset number 0, I can actually put a lead time month on here. Let's say we put 2 months in advance. What that's going to do is that is actually going to change when our lead time starts. So in this case, we can see that it starts within February, and we can actually straight line that particular purchase price over those months. We understand that your organization might not be making a flat out purchase within one particular month right here, say for a production facility. So we want to also give you the ability to model what that would look like over a set of months right here, assuming that it would be straight line. There can ultimately be programmability around what those values look like, or that could be inputted by a user. But the idea here is to give you flexibility to see exactly how asset purchases can be done and how depreciation will start, of course, during the in-service date when the actual asset is online and being utilized by the organization here. As we mentioned before, this ultimately leads to a few things. One, visibility into the assets that you're making investments in, and two, the cash flow potential of that asset and how that affects you both from an inflow and an outflow standpoint. An inflow, if we're talking about production facilities, being that you now have more capacity to be able to meet demand now that you have a new facility online, in addition to the ability to see how that affects your profitability, and ultimately how that affects your cash inflow and outflows and the cash you have in your organization to be able to make these sorts of investments, and what sort of decision you need to make from a financing side in order to be able to justify that investment here. So as a CFO, this is a dreamland. This is ultimately going to lead to you having the ability to see a full 360 view of all your financials and how they are being impacted by one another. So I hope you enjoyed this particular video. In our next one, we're going to be talking all about eliminations and allocations that might be happening from an intercompany standpoint. So we'll see you in the next one. Thank you, and this is Alp signing out.